Aloha everybody, welcome to Antique Aloha, Hawaiian Music of the Golden Age. My name is Chris Ruppenthal. I'm an avid record collector, as you can see behind me. I'm also an avid Hawaiian steel guitar player, and I hope that you'll check out my showcase at another point in the virtual convention this year. I've been doing these antique phonograph presentations for a number of years, 5 or 6 years. And I always like to use the opportunity to kind of tell the early story of Hawaiian music. It obviously goes well paired with the antique Victrola that I like to bring and spin records on. It also, I think, is valuable because I think that a lot of fans of Hawaiian music maybe are not completely aware or have ever known the early history of the music, and I think that it's fascinating. For a number of reasons. There's so many kind of historic benchmarks that happen in the world of Hawaiian music, as well as in the greater recording technology advancement. And so that's what we're going to do today. I was lucky enough, because of the format, I was lucky enough to be lent some records that are not in my collection that I can present to you. I'm also going to present full songs, which I don't always do during these phonograph presentations. I just find that people get a little antsy in their seats, so I like to have them applaud records partway through. Yeah, so we're going to have a bit of a history lesson in the early Hawaiian music, and just keep in mind that all these old records, they influence and they are part of the story of this music that we love. They influence all the music that came after. These records influence the other performers in this convention, and they're just it's a beautiful story to be told. And so without further ado, we're going to move on to the first record. This is from Victor's 15,000 series, which dates from 1904. These records were recorded by Zonophone but released by Victor. No Zonophone issues have ever come up, so it's thought that only Victor pressed the records, which is a typical thing. This first one is by the Ellis Brothers Glee Club, and we'll be right back after that. What a lovely record. Really great. Ellis Brothers Glee Club from 1904, Victor 15,000 series. I would like to take a second and thank my good friend Ryan Erickson for lending me that record to share with you guys. Those records are very rare, and I actually didn't have one to share with you, and so he was generous enough to lend that to me to broadcast today. He actually just found that record not too terribly long ago at an estate sale, so they are still out there. Historically, very important. Those, as well as the American recording company Hawaiian Records from around the same time frame, and the Columbia Y series. Those are the first 3 recording sessions of Hawaiian music on 70 RPM records, and the interesting and fascinating thing about all of them is that none of them actually have any steel guitar on them. Obviously, the steel guitar had been invented at that point, but for whatever reason, that's not what wound up on the earliest 78 RPM record sessions. And so, historically, very important, and also very enjoyable, I think. So, anyway, with that in mind, on to the next recording. Nipple by Toots Paka Company is what we just heard. That was the very first commercially available recording of a steel guitar. There was just a little bit of steel there in the background, but it was present. It was issued originally on a wax cylinder, Edison 11500, and then it was reissued on the copy that I have is not a wax cylinder. This is an amberol, so it has celluloid covering. And the inventor of the steel guitar, Joseph Kekuku, was actually present at that recording session. Toots Paka did recordings both for 2-minute and 4-minute cylinders in October of 1909. And some of them feature Kekuku on steel. This particular recording, which again was the first ever issued commercially available recording of a steel guitar, was July Paka, Toots' husband, playing the steel. So very historically important, very interesting. Again, just a lovely, fun, early Hawaiian tune. So we're going to move on now to another first in steel guitar music. This is Walter Kolonku. He played with the Hawaiian Quintet for Victor in 1913. And the Hawaiian craze really took off around 1915. And so this band was really able to capitalize on that and sell a lot of records, especially since by the mid-teens, the 78 RPM record had really kind of taken over as kind of the main media that people were buying and using. And so in that time, Walter Kolomoku recorded the first instrumental steel solo. So not a vocal record in any way, just the steel guitar alone with accompaniment. And that's what we're going to hear next, a medley of Hawaiian Melodies by Walter Kolonku on Victor 65341B. Enjoy. Walter Kolomoku doing a medley of Hawaiian tunes, the first instrumental Hawaiian steel guitar recording that was available on 78 RPM record, special record, and definitely one of my favorites from that era. Up next, we've got an absolute classic. This one must include tune for a Hawaiian music presentation like this, Aloha Oi. This one is recorded by a group called the Hawaiians, which it's a European recording. The band recorded for His Master's Voice, which is sort of like a sister label to American Victor. Some masters were shared between the companies, but this particular side was only issued in Europe. So the Hawaiians was the touring band, or at least as I understand it, the touring band for the musical Birds of Paradise when that play traveled in Europe. And Birds of Paradise by Richard Walton Tully premiered in 1912, and that, along with the Pan Pacific Expo, really were like the launching points for the craze for Hawaiian music and the rise in its massive popularity by 1915, which lasted for many years. The Birds of Paradise was a smash hit. In its original run, there were 112 performances, and then it went on to touring the United States, and then on to touring Europe. And as I said, this band, the Hawaiians, was apparently the European touring group band that went into the studio to record a few tracks in 1919. And again, it's possible that Joseph Kekuku makes an appearance on this recording. It's possible that July Paka is on here. There's a long list of names, but a lot of these lineups for these recordings, like the information gets lost because company archives and that information gets lost, etc., etc. But regardless, we're going to hear Aloha Oi by the Hawaiians. Aloha Oi from the Hawaiians. Again, the European touring band for the Bird of Paradise musical, which I mentioned before, as well as the 1915 Pan-Pacific Expo. These two things are really the launching pad for the Hawaiian craze, the huge boom in popularity of Hawaiian music that lasted for years to come. And at the 1915 Pan-Pacific Expo, there was a Hawaiian pavilion that featured hula dancers and steel guitars and Hawaiian bands. And one of the people who came to the expo to perform to the mainland was early Hawaiian steel guitar player, Palakiko Frank Ferreira. And he went on to be just one of the most prolific recording artists of all time. Just a wonderful body of work and a fascinating array of records. His discography makes up like around 20% of the huge Hawaiian discography that goes from 1900 to 1960. Just like over 100 pages are just Frank Ferreira records. So very, very prolific. Really one of the first to bridge the gap between being able to sell his records because his name was on them. Back in that time frame, there weren't really pop stars. Some people did become pop stars, Caruso, Sousa. There were some names from the teens and 20s that went on to Billy Murray. People went on to sell records because their names were on it, but a lot of records, a lot of the music marketing that happened was because of the songs that were contained on the records. And Frank Ferreira was so prolific and so talented that he kind of started to break that mold a little bit and actually sell some records because of he was associated with them during the Hawaiian craze. He is known as an amazing steel guitar player, but in fact he was also a very virtuoso ukulele player. And he was the first to record any instrumental ukulele tunes, and I'm going to present one of those to you now. I believe that this is the first side, however, that he did for Gannett in 1922, but there were also recording sessions for Columbia, and the one in question would be the one that he did for OK. I couldn't find a specific recording date, but regardless, they're all within a month of one another. So we're going to hear a nice Maui Waltz ukulele solo feature, the first ukulele solo commercially available by Frank Ferreira. Enjoy. what steel guitar presentation would be complete without mentioning the king of Hawaiian Steel Solo PE, his influence and his music, his popularity are legendary, and he's probably the most well-known Hawaiian steel guitar player outside of people who are here within our community. He really is the gateway for me into Hawaiian music. Was through his music, his Hawaiian swing and jazz and other things like that, and that was the gateway that really inspired me to dig into earlier and earlier and more obscure Hawaiian music. The song that I'm going to present by him is from his Columbia recording sessions. He was the first to record with a national tricone, which really put to bed many Hawaiian steel guitars that were made of wood. The tone, the projection, the harmonics, everything like that, just really bridged the gap between the traditional wood-bodied, koa-bodied Weissenborns and Martins and other things like that were played in the 1900s, teens and 20s. And it bridged the gap into the electric guitar through the use of their internal speaker cones. Very fascinating. He was integral in the creation of the National Tricone. He was there to play prototypes for investors early on, and he was the first to record with it for Columbia in 1927. A lot of his tunes have been reissued, but not all of them. And so I decided to dig deep into his catalog and find one that I think really shows the beautiful traditional side to his playing and really features the amazing tone of the tricone as an instrument. This one is one of my favorites, and again, I don't believe that it's ever been reissued commercially. So it might be new to you, but just a lovely tune. It's called Honolulu Harbor.
Honolulu Harbor,
Harbor by Saul Hopi'i, the king of the Hawaiian steel guitar. Just one of my favorites, and I hope you enjoyed that one as much as I do. Up next, we've got a historically important recording both for the Hawaiian steel guitar world as well as the greater recording industry world. In 1933, in February, the Noilane Hawaiian Orchestra went into the studio for Victor, and they recorded a handful of tunes on featuring the newly electrified Hawaiian steel guitar. These are the first commercially available electric guitar recordings that were ever released. While there had been some theremin recordings beforehand, realistically it was the first electric instrument recording that had ever been done. And you will note on the recording that I think they're still trying to learn how to tame this squirrely, very loud instrument with sustain that lasts forever. It's a curious recording, really enjoyable, and I hope that you enjoy it. This is Dreams of Aloha by Noilane Hawaiian Orchestra from Victor. Enjoy. Dreams of Aloha by Noilane's Hawaiian Orchestra. A real significant turning point in the history of Hawaiian music. The invention of the electric guitar and its rise in popularity really changed and modernized Hawaiian music into what I believe that most fans of Hawaiian music are more familiar with. The vaudeville novelty and early 20s swing and jazz sounds kind of gave way to more popular, more modern styles of Hawaiian music. But it is all a continuum, and the Ellis Brothers in 1904 and Frank Ferreira in 1920 and Saul Hopi'i in 1928. They all are there, present in this music that we love. And so that kind of brings us to a conclusion because, as I said at the outset, I feel like many people are more knowledgeable and familiar with more modern Hawaiian music. So I wanted to present the early stuff, and I hope that I did that effectively. I will, since this is being pre-recorded, I'll hopefully be around in the comment sections for the streams on YouTube and Facebook that the Hawaiian Steel Guitar Association are going to be streaming. So if you have questions or thoughts or corrections, feel free to reach out. You can also find out more information at my website, which is antiquealoha.com. I am going to be releasing a recording of my own music. I'm a professional musician of many years, and due to COVID, I have nothing but time on my hands to make records at home. So I'll be putting out a Hawaiian record right around the time that the convention broadcasts, and it's going to be home recordings of myself interpreting or recreating some of my favorite Hawaiian records from the era that I love, the era that I've presented today. And so, again, you can check that out at antiquealoha.com. I also do these presentations when it's safe not to quarantine yourself at home for months and months. I would love to discuss opportunities to do one of these in person. I have a variety of different types of presentations that I can do on different subject matter, and so I'd love to discuss that with you. And again, antiquealoha.com is where you would go to find out about that. Be sure to donate your money, $25 or whatever the suggested donation is, to the HSGA. We're really trying hard to keep this music alive, this music that we all love. And so please help us do that, even during quarantine. So I guess with that, I'm going to leave you with one of my absolute favorites of the more modern era, and probably a song that we'll hear a few times in the showcases that are going to be broadcast over the next day or two. I'm going to leave you with the classic Hawaiian tune, Sand, by Andy Iona. One of my favorites from that era of Hawaiian music. And aloha and mahalo, and I'll see you again sometime, I hope.
Changing light. if we